Hi everyone, we're back. This is Rob Moore and Peter du Toit. This is Football Africa, and we're saying it like it is. And today, I think the subject should be Manchester City, best team in the world. They've just done the treble. And Rob, you've got an intimate knowledge of the guys behind the scenes at Man City because of your time at Barcelona. The CEO, technical director, and Pep. They're all spent big parts of their career at Barcelona. You were there for what, 13 years? You've met them, you've spoken to them, you've had personal conversations with them. Obviously, give us, besides the obvious that they've got great coach and great players, behind the scenes, what makes these guys tick and why they're so successful at Manchester City. And before you go on, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. We need your support. Rob.
Peter, hi. No, it's been a pleasure watching Man City this year. They really they got what they deserved, and it's incredible to think Pep last won the Champions League 12 years ago. It's it's a credible statistic. But Peter, all of this in my book, it's no accident that these things happen. This is, they have this. There's this impression about them being the big spenders, and in isolated instances, yes, they spend 100 million on Grealish. Probably too much money at that stage on a player like that. They spend the money on Haaland, not necessarily the transfer fee, but they've paid him the wages they've paid, which have been incredible when you add that together. But if you notice very often, it's never a complete rebuild of the team year on year. This team has evolved. They plug pieces in each transfer window. They look for one, maybe two players that really they need to move it on to the next step. And they're a club that says no if they feel the money's too high. I think it was a couple of seasons back when they were looking for a striker. Jesus was there. Yeah. And they couldn't get the right guy, or the right guy was too expensive. They walked away from the deal and they went into the season with Jesus, and Pep changed his tactics in terms of not having necessarily a classic number 9 every game. He would play with a false 9, and he would improvise. And so they definitely are a club that place a value on a player, and they won't be bullied into gain what they perceive to be over the odds.
Okay? But when you say club, a club is only about the people. So the CEO and the technical director, besides the owner, the CEO and technical director are the most important, even before the coach, because they're the guys who say, bring in someone like Pep. You know them both well from your time in Barcelona. What are they like? They must be geniuses in their own way. What have you, when you sat down and had a coffee with them, or a tea with them, or a beer with them, what are the kind of things they say that you go, wow, okay, that's what makes you guys different?
Well, I've known Ferran for a long time. Ferran Soriano is the CEO of the City Group. Ferran's a sharp business guy. But I think he's ace up his sleeve is he's got total trust in his sports director, and therefore lets him get on with it and doesn't interfere. He just tries to make it happen from the financial perspectives and all those kinds of things. Okay. But the sports director is Chiqui Beguerestein, former Spanish national team player, former Barca player, played under Johan Cruyff, a disciple of Johan Cruyff's philosophy, and an absolute super chap. I get on really well with him, and I really like him. Just wish I had players that actually he wanted at some stage. But Chiqui, I never forget. We went to Barcelona some years ago, and we were having a coffee. And we were talking about a particular player, an attacking player. And I said, but Chiqui's 1v1 is very, very good, And he looked up and he said, 1v1, not enough. I said, what are you talking about? 1v3. So I said, what are you talking about, Chiqui? 1v3. I haven't heard that terminology. He said, Rob, at the absolute top level, the best players are surrounded by on their own, they're surrounded by 3 players. Do they have the solutions to get out of those kinds of situations? Do they have the feet? Can they see the gap? Do they have the acceleration, the explosiveness? It was a different level of thinking for me. It was something that I hadn't been thought about.
Well, that's a great insight, Rob, because if you look at Barcelona and Man City, there's a common denominator. They've always got players and they've always signed players or developed players who can beat 3 players in one go. Brilliant.
Yeah. And Peter, and the most classic example that is an illustration of Messi's genius, but also this whole philosophy of being surrounded and having to beat multiple players. Some years ago, when he played at Barca in the cup final against Athletic Bilbao at Camp Nou, he scored the most incredible individual goal. And ESPN, I think if you Google it, actually, you look at the ESPN analysis of that goal. They took it virtually frame by frame, and the ball was never more than about, I think they said 10 inches from his foot in the entire action. And he ran, he took off just in the opposing half, down the left, down the right.
He got the ball on the right. Did he get
down the right, beat a whole lot of players, cut in, and then scored in the from the edge of the box at the near post, I think it was. Yeah. And they analyzed it, how far the ball was from his foot at any given moment. And the percentage probability or what how he had to strike that shot on goal in order for him to have any chance of scoring it from that angle at that distance. It's a fascinating look. It's a couple of minutes video that ESPN did. I would urge fans to look at it because it's a whole different level. And the bottom line is, Peter, at the highest level, you need players who are a percentage of Messi because there is only one Messi. So anything else is a percentage of Messi. And
Barcelona side had Xavi and Iniesta, and to a certain extent Sanchez when he came there as well. But those 2 in particular who were geniuses. They could get past 3 players. Yeah,
and you look at Man City now, and you look at how Pep's developed Man City. Coming back to Man City, in his early time he had David Silva there, and when David Silva came to Premier League, all the journos, the journos love a rah bravado. We've got the tough league. You're too lightweight to survive, and blah blah blah. Where's Silva going to survive? He's lightweight. I wouldn't mind a lightweight player like that because he came in and he is what I call a locksmith midfielder, number 10 midfielder. So what do I mean by that? I think he's a midfielder that floats, gets the ball, and he sees that 10-meter ball or that 15-meter ball that just unpicks everything. Yeah. And is probably the hockey assist in a lot of ways. It's the pass that leads to the assist that leads to the goal.
Yeah.
So you don't see it on the statistics necessarily.
He scrambled everything up, kind of thing.
Yeah. He just in amongst the maze, they see a path, and they're able to just with the right weight of pass, knock it in for the right run to be made. And so you had so you had him, and then you had more recently when David Silva left, I would call Bernardo Silva. Bernardo's not a typical winger. He's a floater in my book, And I think much like probably Phil Foden is that type of player potentially in the future, maybe a little bit more direct, but still with that silky touch. And I think that is one of the hallmarks of a Pep team, that he needs those kind of players.
Would you have called Modric similar?
Yeah. But Modric could mix it up from the deep as well. Yeah. He could De Bruyne can mix it up from the deep. De Bruyne can see something
30
from
yards
his
away.
own half when he's out in a wide position with a type of bend in the pass, over a 40-meter pass with a certain bend into a certain area. That really is incredible, you know.
Actually, they're not. You know what? They're not many players. If you think about it, how many players can you count the last amount of years, like a Silva? Well, both of them happen to be Silva, Bernardo Silva and David Silva. They're not that, and you obviously got Iniesta, and you've got Xavi and Messi, but they're not that many if you think about it.
No, exactly. And I remember having a chat. With the new owners of Chelsea, and in that, we're just talking about they just newly bought the club, and just talking about the forward line and why generally they've gone through quite a few attackers over the years. That, I mean, I don't think there's really any attackers that Chelsea have that you could say became better players at Chelsea. In many cases, they went backwards.
Drogba definitely.
No, I'm talking post that time. I'm talking the last 5 years.
No.
I don't think there is an attacker that you could say came into Chelsea and left a better player or became a better player.
Tammy Abrams really only got better at Roma.
Yeah, exactly, because he was, for whatever reason, Chelsea let him go. Werner, Pulisic, Havertz hasn't been the Havertz. The Havertz Chelsea model versus the Havertz Leverkusen model is different, So is it all down to the attackers themselves? My point to them was, where is your David Silva or your Bernardo Silva? Where is your locksmith floating number 10 midfielder? Because if you had that, then you might have a different perspective for your attackers. Yeah. And, because when you've played Mason Mount at 10, he's a far more direct, far more player whose skill set's based on pressing.
He's a dynamic player. He's not a.
He's totally different type of player. Okay, not saying he's a bad player, but he's a different player. And I'm saying it at that sort of, that type of level when you're playing a certain type of football. Those kind of players those Silvers are worth their weight in gold. So if you could say it like that, Listen, Liverpool never had one, but they played a different type of football. They were front foot football, very as Jurgen says, heavy metal football. It's
Salah could bring things out the magic, but as a wide player, I mean, he could unlock things. He's got that certainly, but he's more.
He's from the right positions, as you say. But there's no number 10, no floating guy in the pocket.
Firmino had a bit of it, genius, but maybe with his back to goal and twisting and turning, as opposed to the kind of the two Silvers we're talking about, and Iniesta and so on. But he had that ability to unlock things, but different kind of player. But that's why he was in that team, and that's one of the reasons why they won so many things. But there are not that many players around. To a certain extent, Arsenal's captain, his name just who's captain?
Ozil was that type of player when he was on his game.
Yeah, but
his game was more suited to La Liga than Premier League. Because
Arsenal's captain currently, I've just forgotten his name.
Odegaard's got a touch of that.
Lovely skill.
Yeah.
And that's why they play such good football, because you've got somebody who can unlock and disrupt things. But tell me, Rob, going back to Trixie, is that what you call him? Is his nickname?
Chicky.
Give us some other gems. I mean, that I think is a gem. What's their long term? Obviously he knows how to build a team. How do you see that Man City side? Is it built in his eyes, or is it built in Pep's eyes, or is it in their joint vision's eyes?
I think their working relationship is telepathic, I think, in many ways. because they worked together in the absolute successful days in Barcelona. Then Chiqui and Ferran went off to Man City. I think Pep was when Chiqui and Ferran went to Man City. If I'm not mistaken, Pep was in his last years in Bayern Munich, and then Pep took a sabbatical, and then they got him over to Man City. So it was always going to be a plan that triumvirate were going to link up or link up again, and you know, when you've got that absolute trust in each other, the three of them have, and that they absolutely all sing off the same hymn sheet. You know, it makes building a dynasty. It makes it a little bit easier. You know, not that it is ever easy, but it makes it easier. You know, so yeah, I think that's absolutely the key, and that relationship, and that's what City are reaping the rewards of, and have reaped the rewards of since Pep came. You know,
I mean, if you look at the players that they've signed, I mean, obviously besides Haaland and Grealish, a lot of the players were not massive names when they were signed. I mean, Edison, the goalkeeper, wasn't a massive name.
Yeah, Rodri,
it was a big name, but not massive.
Yeah.
Fullbacks, besides Walker, I'm talking about the foreign fullbacks, weren't massive names.
Yeah.
Which in the back wasn't a massive name. No one said he's going to be a big player.
I mean, Stone's playing at centre half, at centre midfield now. You know,
he was always destined to be able to, but you know, there were a lot of English players. He's become twice the player he ever was. That if you go through the side, there are players there that would get, besides obviously the top 4 or 5, that if they were in other teams, they may not have achieved what they've achieved. But tell me, when you spoke to Trixie and that, I mean, does he say about, what does he think of Pep? Does he, you know, or he just say like everyone else, a genius? I mean, or is he?
Peter, I was sitting in a meeting with Pep, in a meeting with Chiqui, some time ago. It was some years ago, and Pep came into the office. I'm not a starstruck guy. I've met a few people in my time. I don't really, very few people I could say the hairs on my arm stood up. But when he came into the office, it was like almost, you don't understand the magnetism of this guy. He is, there's some people that when they walk into the room, everyone just keeps talking and drinking. There's others who, when they walk into the room's quiet and everyone just watches. Maradona was like that. I remember when I was I went to go watch a game, the English League against the rest of the world, or some exhibition match at Wembley Stadium, and I was in the players' lounge after the game. And in walked Maradona. And it's just silence. It's like absolute respect, And
because every time he walks into, it must have been strange for Maradona that every time he walked into a room, everything went quiet.
Well, in some rooms, but yeah, so Pep is that absolute kind of respect. I think as well. I mean, interesting one about Stones. He's getting a lot of plaudits now, playing in defensive midfield. But I remember a conversation I had with Roberto Martinez when Roberto was at Everton and Stones was at Everton. And he was a player coming through as a central defender. And you could see he could play. He had more technical skill than most English centre halves. But he was prone to a clanger virtually, a lot of games. And I remember having the conversation with Roberto in his office. I said to him, Roberto, to be honest, I would think that Stones probably is more suited to be a defensive midfielder in England because certainly in this period now where he makes a, there's a good chance it can be a big mistake. At least he would have somebody behind him to mop it up, But I think in time, he's got the ability, because of his technical level, to actually be a good La Liga defender. Because La Liga defenders, you need to be more technical than necessarily than Premier League defenders. And that's why I thought sort of Stones' calling ultimately could be, probably as a La Liga defender. But I think he's developed, the times that Pep's used him in midfield, he's done really, really well. And that's because he's not your stereotyped English central defender. You think John Terry, you think those type of, he's a totally different breed.
But also it's a genius move for a couple of reasons. Number one, he becomes the free man, and psychologically, he's never going to look like the danger man. So he's never going to be the first man picked up to a certain extent. I mean, obviously he gets done and so on, but he does have a lot more space. If you watch the games, he gets more space than most players, which allows him to actually start a lot of moves because he actually is the free man. And his passing ability is good. His understanding of the game is good. And also his physical presence there takes up space, which is good from a defensive point of view. But I think it's genius because he shouldn't be the guy they free up, if you think about it.
Yeah.
They should free up every other player. But in doing so, it's just actually changed the whole way they play. And I guarantee you, I think next season you'll see another change. And it may not be, they may start like that, but it won't be like that. It won't be Stones the free man. Because eventually people start closing him down, and he is a suspect at times. Just jumping quickly, Robert, you're a better coach than Martinez because he never played in the
he's actually a nice guy. Roberto's a nice guy. But the thing is, Peter, one thing you can be guaranteed of now that City have won the treble is that Pep is going to be relentless in the summer on what can he do that's going to be out the box that people aren't going to anticipate that he's going to do next season. This is Pep. I mean, I remember...
Edison will play holding midfield.
What's that?
Edison will play at holding midfield.
Exactly. Play without a keeper. He's played without a striker. He can play without a keeper. But I remember, I don't know if somebody told me this or I read it somewhere, but he was preparing for a Clásico and in the Barca days. And he was studying Real Madrid and trying to find the edge on what is happening with how they play, how can they get the edge. And he hit upon it one night at 10 o'clock in the training ground. He saw how the two central defenders were prone to getting sucked in and dragged away from being the last line of defense. And he phones Messi up at 10 o'clock and tells Messi, come to the training ground now. I've worked out how we're going to play these guys. And it was, Messi comes in, and it was the false nine concept. How Messi would drop into the hole that was behind where a typical nine would be, but it would be deep enough towards his own goal to suck in at least one, or certainly the attention of both central defenders.
And both Ramos.
And wide players would then be the ones coming in behind. So the concept of the false nine.
And incidentally, if you think about it, both Ramos and Pepe couldn't resist a bite.
Exactly. They were. You had a good chance one of them would see red in the match.
And they would go deeper. They're going, I'm taking you out. I've got to get you. At some stage, the red flag would have been just too much.
They were so driven. They were like, and that's. But Peter, 10 o'clock at night at the training ground.
Yeah.
It comes across the solution. So that says it all. You know what I mean? He's, the absolute elite coaches of today, and Benny will tell you this from his time at United so far, the guys are starting work at 7:30 in the morning, and they're leaving 6:37 at night. And these are the technical staff.
Yeah.
You know, they are preparing sessions, but preparing based on things they've picked up, based on what the team has told them, the technical team has told them, working on it, then going back to relook. You know, these sessions are videotaped and analyzed. You know, I'll give you another small example of, just because this is, we're digressing a bit, but this is on high level football, some interesting little things. And it concerns actually when we had a player on trial at a club at Red Bull Leipzig, and and they were videotaping the training session, and they showed me a little bit of footage, and I said, why is the player we brought got white socks on and everybody's got black socks on? So they said, and I'm watching this video in black and white, right? They filmed this thing in black and white. So why has the guy got white and the others all got black, you know? They said, because he's on trial and we want to analyze everything about his movement. And the easiest way to pick that up is for him to stand out for us. And the socks tell us who he is from where the camera's got height. And we can see his patterns of runs, and we can see all these kinds of stuff. I mean, you know, Peter, this is the depth, eh? This is the detail. Now, I'm sure, okay, that's a trial situation, but I'm sure there must be training sessions that the absolute highest coaches lay out, where they've got certain things that they do in the way the guys are dressed that can make them pick out certain things that they're looking for, you know? It's phenomenal. It's just on a different level.
But you know, Rob, and we can close on this note, a lesson for South African football: details you can do.
Yeah.
And we are not detailed enough. But enough on that, Rob. Those intimate things on Man City and Leipzig, wonderful. Really enjoyed it. And guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. We need your support. We love your support. It encourages us. And Rob, we'll chat again soon. I think the next one, let's go back to local. See you soon, guys.